Hey guys, this is Dino from 3 Lives Left, and today I'm going to answer the question, is The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom just a $70 DLC to Breath of the Wild? One of the beautiful aspects of Nintendo as a game developer is how they continue to create classic games that don't require a competitive scene to do really well. This is a completely new experience to me as far as gaming goes. Yes, games with a similar open world feel, like Skyrim and Elden Ring, are all really fun to play, with lots of different quest lines and powerful bosses to defeat. But I don't think they touch Tears of the Kingdom in certain aspects, and here is why. Above all, the magic of Tears of the Kingdom really comes from the creativity that the game affords the player. Take, for example, Zonai devices. Using these and some simple metal frames, the player can make tanks, automated drones, and even planes to defeat enemies with. These devices also help out a lot with overworld quests and puzzles, making it super easy to maneuver and just enjoy the new scenery that the game has presented. I, personally, do almost none of the puzzles the way the game intends for me to complete them, using little tricks such as bomb shield fusing and exploiting recall in both fights and in shrines. Overall, this is one of the most enjoyable games I have ever played, due partially to the fact that I enjoy exploration in open world games so much. I mean, I have never seen this amount of content in a game before, with 3 massive areas to explore, which include the Sky Islands, the Depths, and the Overworld, which has been more impactful than people give it credit for. Tears of the Kingdom is one of those games that actually rewards the player for being creative, and not wasting time on doing repetitive, mind-numbing side quests. Ubisoft. And that's something this game excels at. Almost every side quest I've completed feels unique, excluding a few minor ones, such as helping a construction worker stand up various signs all over the overworld map. Without spoiling too much, Nintendo added some new functionalities since Breath of the Wild that have changed the game for the better. For example, take Mineru, which, in my opinion, is so helpful for exploring the depths that it is even better than the Master Cycle Zero, which in itself didn't even come until the DLC for Breath of the Wild came out. I will admit, some issues do remain. Carrying over an annoying mechanic from Breath of the Wild, the new restrictive ground cover, Gloom, resembles Breath of the Wild's Decay, which isn't fun to deal with. However, by now, we have many more tools such as Mineru, the Zonai devices, and Auto Build to entirely avoid this minor inconvenience. Contrary to some of the major complaints, Nintendo definitely made more quality of life improvements that have made gameplay seamless and enjoyable. Now, on to the fun part, addressing the complaints. The biggest complaint I've heard from other content creators is how they view Tears of the Kingdom as a DLC to Breath of the Wild, and not a new entry to the franchise. In one way, I understand this, because Nintendo did recycle some old assets, like characters and some of the overworld design of Breath of the Wild. Yet, even considering those details, I would say that this game is still a completely new experience from Breath of the Wild, with so many hours of brand new content that would never be called DLC in any other game series. For one, they added quite a few new characters, and even old characters have changed drastically to reflect their personal growth as people. According to Games Radar, if you were to just complete the main story of the game, it would take you between 45 to 55 hours. Adding some side quests, that goes up to the 55 to 70 hour range. And finally, for total completion, you can expect well over 100 hours of solid content. That number alone proves that this game stands alongside some other amazing open world games like Elden Ring and Skyrim. Yes, I understand some games offer nearly infinite exploration, such as No Man's Sky and Minecraft. But it still has taken me over 30 hours just exploring maybe 3/4 of the overall map above and below ground. Nintendo also created an entirely new species of character called the Zonai, which you do not directly interact with other than the intro and through some of Zelda's memories discovered throughout gameplay. However, they do have a major effect on the storyline as a whole through ghosts and the game's prologue. Anyways, another complaint that I have heard is that the graphics are simply too much for the Switch to handle, leading to lagging and generally slow gameplay if too many inputs occur at once. I fully understand this complaint. However, Nintendo created this game knowing that it could run really well, for the most part, on the original Switch. So, if you are one of those people that care more about graphics being over 1080p and a smooth 60 FPS, I'm sorry to tell you that the Switch is simply not the console for you. Unfortunately, Nintendo is one of those companies that does not permit any modification of their games for PC and other console play. So, the Switch is the only way to access this game title. However, the only times that I actually hit major lag spikes are when I am traveling very quickly into the depths from the overworld, or when I'm in bullet time midair. Granted, one of these is essentially due to the fact that the depths does not have a loading screen, making it more difficult for the game to process traversing between two completely different and massive areas of the overall map. Also, the only time that bullet time lags is if you attach certain materials that have large explosion particle effects, which is a rare occurrence in normal gameplay. The only other major issue that I've seen content creators discuss is weapon durability, which was an all-new mechanic that Legend of Zelda series first introduced in Breath of the Wild. I understand for many gamers that the mechanic of durability does not feel fun, especially when it means that your favorite weapon combo will eventually break no matter what, which is probably why game series like Fallout 4 got rid of this mechanic even when the franchise had it for so long before this. However, I think this part of the game is a necessary component to break monotonous gameplay loops, and it makes Tears of the Kingdom that much more unique. I will say that I do not truly enjoy this mechanic itself. However, it is a factor that makes gameplay more challenging and feel more rewarding to the player. I think that a lack of weapon durability makes sense in games like Destiny, where you have to grind to get overpowered weapons eventually. Of course, these weapons never break, because if those weapons did, then it would invalidate the work that the player puts in to gain them. However, Tears of the Kingdom is a game that wants to encourage creativity in the player via experimenting with new weapons and mechanics, which is why your weapons break, so you have to recycle using many different kinds of them. Of course, Tears of the Kingdom does not remotely compare to games like Elden Ring as far as combat and the variation of the movesets of enemies is concerned. Parrying attacks and dodging attacks and then using flurry rushes after this are the best ways to counter stronger enemies, and both of these mechanics are relatively easy to time. However, the durability of your weapon makes the game more challenging and exciting, since the player always has to be ready to switch weapons if one breaks. Here's where one of the strongest weapons in the game comes in, the Master Sword. In every past Zelda game, the Master Sword, or a version of it, has been Link's one and only hand-to-hand weapon. You can now fuse items to this sword to make it stronger, but it only has a certain amount of charge, so you have to let it recharge every so often after it uses up its energy. In this way, it also has a certain durability. Luckily, once you have it, it can never break. It will simply be unusable after it has taken too much damage. I understand this complaint against weapon durability. However, I think it adds a certain difficulty to a game that would not otherwise exist. This is simply how Nintendo avoids the trope of an overpowered weapon meta that is consistently abused, such as the BFG from the Doom series. Overall, this is one of my favorite games of all time, easily getting a 9.9 out of 10 from me. The missing 0.1 is because you can't pet dogs, but it still beats out its predecessor, Breath of the Wild, and a few others for one of my top spots. I totally understand that the complaints that most gamers have with Tears of the Kingdom, and I hope that I have shed some light onto some of these complaints that might change your mind. Thank you all for watching all the way through this video. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this type of content. This is Dino from 3 Lives Left, signing off.